Alrighty, it's been less than a minute. It's probably been about 20-30 seconds from the video I left off on the Patreon, free on the front page, where I was covering the all-important point of nobody can see past their own personal fear wall. Aha! So anybody watching this is straight away going, wow, you just read from a piece of paper. Maybe these videos are about to get better. Watch the Patreon if you want explanation for why they're not. Okay, so it's people can't see past their personal fear wall. Okay, so in the last week, we've been going for 1 week. Hey, day 8. Okay, so what videos might you have missed out on? Look, this is the channel which is all about presenting a vision and trying to introduce concepts associated with that. And again, I've given reason elsewhere, perhaps, as to why it is I wouldn't just come forward and put it all together in one go. I think personally that would be better in an interview process where a person who's really sensitive to the needs of the people could raise topics for me to then explore. But we need to have some fundamental documents, if you will, covering some basic precepts, basic things that might be in play. And just like whenever everybody reads a book, I tell my child constantly, read The Path Less Travelled. I think it might be The Road Less Travelled. M. Scott Peck. No, M. Scott Peck. Is he the Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance dude? I don't know. Anyway, the Path Less Travelled or The Road Less Travelled. Brilliant bloody book. Brilliant. And the guy was he was like a therapist for an entire village type area. And unlike Freud, who worked one zone and walked away with the belief that everyone was sick and had these certain issues, M. Scott Peck had served an entire population over the course of his life in the roles of a psycho-counsellor at that role. And he came to the realisation later in his life that people generally have 3 big stumbling blocks that they need to address, and he wrote a book that addresses those things. But I'd always told my child, and for themselves and all of their friends, to read this book. And the reason to do that is to have a common language or a common dialogue, to have common words that have a shared meaning that you can all then use, and it brings the pace of conversation forward. We don't have to waste time arguing about, what do you mean when you say that? You know, and if somebody in a book is quite profound, has written down some key concepts, and look, seriously, I think point 1 in that book is talking about love. And he's great because he says, can't really explain what love is, but I'll start by describing what love isn't. And so that's sort of what these videos are doing, is we're introducing some basic building blocks, and we're creating a position where we can maybe have some generalised base understanding for which we can then maybe talk about a greater concept. And so, you know, I personally believe, and the one bit of feedback I've been given, I actually made one of my friends watch one of these videos. Woo! And the feedback they gave me, I thought it was really ironic, because it was like they said to me all the same points I brought up in that video. I went back and watched the same video and thought, well, they said that to me, and they said that to me, and they said that to me, and they were all the things I actually said in the video. So, you know, great, we're on the same page, at least. But we're of the belief that a Q&A type format would be best. And they weren't saying it to be mean. They weren't saying, it's because you don't hold a theme. They could have easily said that, and I would have totally agreed with them. But the notion is that if I'm responding to a theme, I can instantly see the point of view that people might think are beyond my periphery. And if I introduce certain themes, then it says that's the way my mind works, and so I'm not really interested to do that. But if somebody can, you know, take the thoughts of the masses and put them in a format that makes for good questions that the people, you know, en masse might literally be thinking. For me to then be able to address those questions shows my understanding of it. And based off these videos, you'd think, no man, this person's not ready for a dialogue at that level. I've been ready for that level for 20 years. Bring it on! And it would be fun, you know, and I think I would know when to shut up and when to listen for the next question, and that's the important part. But redressing people's fears, and this comes back to the heading of today's videos, which is nobody can see past their own personal fear wall, right? Is that okay? So you know, again, this is why this one video isn't going to explain it. What we need to do in order for society to just be right, even though there is a construct, right? We're going to just digest little building blocks along the way. But while I'm redressing this issue of nobody can see past their personal fear wall, we're going to see that I'm going to introduce some terms and some topics that might be associated with. I always try to introduce little nuggets of information. I'm planting seeds if you would like to water them. So this is what we're doing. And in the last week, in the course of the people that I've been reaching out to, okay, so it's probably important that if people had a timeline for, in my life, what's been happening with trying to transmit this all-important information, is that it's never worked out for me, okay? And it's not because I come across zany like I do on these videos and you go, well, how do you know you can't see yourself from outside? How do you know how you come across? I'm talking with my best friends, people I've known for forever, and if I bring up with them the concept of, having hung out with them daily for years, decades, whatever, to all of a sudden just one day say, oh yeah man, by the way, and generally over a course of beers or something, I got the solution for world peace, and never even get half a sentence into it, and everyone's like, oh yeah, really, what? And as soon as you say something where they go, you haven't thought about that, and it's like, yes, I have, and then we get caught up answering one point, and then they realise, well, okay, you have, but what's actually happening, as soon as someone says there's this great personal burden that you might have to take on board, there's change in your life, or there's change that you can bring about, with that comes responsibility, and most people, this is just off their radar, this is just mind-blowing, and it's too heavy. And so we instantly just push it out of our periphery. And I heard this, and I'll give some examples, but straight away I'll make everyone go, oh, yeah, and they're just going to want to skip this video, because if I talk about the concepts that people typically want to push out of their minds, you understand I'm going to create a disconnect. So I'm not going to flesh that out with examples. But the notion that nobody can see past their own personal fear wall, well, I say that's a fallible statement, because using terms like all or every, anytime you use an eternal concept, the statement is fallible, because I'm sorry, this universe is just too dynamic, and there are so many people on this planet, all things are just playing out, okay? So it doesn't matter what you feel or think, right? It doesn't matter if you think something's possible or not possible. Chances are, somewhere, it probably is. So the statement, nobody can see past their own personal fear wall, look, somebody might be able to, Mr. Jenkins at 23 Whitehall Road might, I don't know where Whitehall Road is, that could be in Zimbabwe. You're thinking London? No. And I did say 22, I think it's 10 Whitehall Road. Is that a significant address, perhaps? I wasn't trying, any relation, all my videos should be prefaced with any relation to people, living or otherwise, current world events, just not intended. It was meant to be a light-hearted example. But no body. Okay, so I won't. No body. Perhaps we're all fallible. A Christian would say we're capable. We're all for sin. We all have different belief systems. A lot of people would believe that people, given their own. I was raised Baptist. I believe. So subtle differences in the Christian mythos, if you're outside of that circle, is the Baptists, I guess, believe that a child is born inherently good, and that the world teaches us sin. But I guess the overarching Christian dogma suggests that we're all born into sin, and we're born into sin. I'll agree with that. But to say that we're sinful at the time of conception, possibly, we've been hearing, if your parents are into Led Zeppelin, you might have been listening to rock and roll music, against your volition. You might be into classical, you might be into orchestral, you might be into, I don't know, rock operas. War of the Worlds is a really good one. Lots of good artists in that. So, look, nobody can see past their own personal fear wall. Okay, so this has become my experience in the last week. I keep using my paper. It's my jelly beans, if you will. So, what's become apparent to me in the last week, when I'm attempting to garner a little bit of interest, knowing that my source materials aren't anything really up to the speed of sharing, and they're not. That the one discussion I've had, and it's been the best thing, because in the course of decades, it's the most I've ever spoken about this vision. Like, oh man, just my voice actually started to crack up a little bit at probably the 3-minute mark. 3 minutes, because I recognised that I'd never been able to say that much ever. No, nobody had ever given me that much of an audience. Okay, so So in my hometown, there's a soapbox, and you're allowed to go and stand on the soapbox. You can just on a Sunday, you can just go down, you can stand up on a soapbox, and you can just transmit to everybody there. In fact, excellent. I've just been given motivation going ahead, something I can do next Sunday. I'd just say so I don't forget that. I'm going to take a mental note. And I mean, that really tells people how little I watch these videos. And sorry to be so revealing in my process. All right, Sunday soapbox. See, I know what that means. Do I call it a soapbox? They wouldn't call it a soapbox, but anyone can go down it. And it's very much like Greek times, I guess, where great minds will sit around and talk about concepts. And the sad thing is, each time I've walked past it, you see people. We get a lot of homeless in my city. We're the most isolated city of its size in the world, or something. There might be a few qualifiers to that statement, but it's been a fact. It's been made evident to me ever since I first came to Perth, Australia. And we get a lot of homeless here. And look, I mean, I've grown up. I've spent time in all the capital cities of Australia and a lot of the smaller country towns, and some of them eventually became cities. I've watched the country grow. And in any other city, the homeless can move, right? You can get on a train, you can risk a fine, right? If you're homeless, you don't really feel like you're risking much to have shelter for a brief moment on a metal carriage. Get on a train, and you can travel 50 kilometres north, or 30 kilometres south, or you can actually move from that location. It's not so hard. But here in Perth, we don't really have a lot of that going on. We've got people that might travel from like 1,000 kilometres around us, maybe not out from the ocean, and once they get here, they might not have the ability to get out of here. So anyway, whatever reason, we've got a lot of homeless. And so the soapbox on a typical Sunday, you get some deeply hurt people who get up and they talk. And the good thing is our society, we prop them up. There's usually quite a few people that are willing, and they stop and they listen, they turn, and they form a great big congregation, a bit of a circle around there. Maybe I've never hung around long enough to see that each and every single one of those other people in the audience then get up and have a turn, and maybe we're all just hurt beings needing to have our chance to chat. And hence why I'm moving, discussions about me to a separate channel, because they're just therapy, They don't exist for any purpose that's it's altruistic or for helping humanity. They're just using me, saving money, paying another person to be my sounding board to hear about my process. But it's fair to say in the course of my life, when chatting with people, that I've never ever been able to get past maybe a sentence or two. And this really freeing thing the other day, when chatting to an amazing person who gave me their time. And it was fortuitous. I always believe you're on the right path when certain events happen. And I'd rung a particular person who I really wanted to speak with, and I needed their counsel, and I did. And when they returned my call, it was a fair enough moment for me. I mean, I was per usual on my 2 hours of sleep, and I get up at this morning. I've been up at 2 o'clock, and it's 4 o'clock now. So that shows how much prep potentially goes into these videos. You go, where's the prep? I can't see it. Yeah, there's white blanket behind me, man. Like, get over yourself. It's prep. Lots of prep. Look, you might not have noticed that the camera's up at a slightly higher angle. I got a little bit less shadow under my eyes. That's not the reason. It's just so that I'm looking up, because when you're looking up, you feel with hope. And so it's easier than looking down. Looking down, my personal energy field collapses within a small amount of time, because I'm not comfortable being on a camera, especially if I haven't got a quality message to present. But anyway, it's so healing for me to be able to chat with someone and get more than a few words out, and then finding that the personal fear factor of just pushing great concepts out of one great responsibility, great concept, great fear, and just pushing it right out of periphery. And that's the challenge. Anyone who watches these things will go, oh yeah, look, that's great, but that video requires thinking, and the next video that just auto-plays at the end of this one is just, that doesn't require thinking, that's just consumption, that's crunchy. I can eat a muesli bar while watching that one. So yeah, eat a muesli bar, I'm not going to stop you. So look, it was so healing to be able to chat with someone, but what became really evident was it was great, because they reaffirmed I was on the right path, and that was all I needed to do, was just go, look, it's socially irresponsible for me to dedicate my time to a channel, and how do you weigh that up? What are you? And that would have been my question for them, and it's about social responsibility, and they were like, well, what do you want me to do? And I was thinking in my head, you've already answered, you've helped me, and I'm holistic. I try to take something from everything, and if it's there to be given, if there's something to be garnered or learned. And when the feedback loop ensued, I realised all of their interjections I'd covered at some level. Not all of them, you know, but the first 2 or 3 big ones. And I thought, yep, I have to keep doing these videos where I only cover just a little bit, little digestible chunks. And because we've got to get to a same common dialogue, if you will, a same common foundation. And so there is method to the madness. And look, I disagree with the professionalism. I mean, it's not the professionalism I would put forward. But I think it's needed to begin a dialogue, if you will, to get there. And so I'm ready to go with a live video, you know. And if I found that I had a few followers, if I found that, and by a few I mean if I thought we were ready to go a larger scale, if I thought there was a chance to spread out, then I'm ready to go live video, you know. And I'm sort of starting to learn a little bit about the tools of the technology that go with this, you know. And it looks like in certain platforms you can get feedback loops, people can actually write to you. And I'm finding out that you've actually got to have a certain number of followers to do this, which is kind of really sad. So maybe I need a celebrity who's got a channel already in place, who's got maybe such capabilities to organise a Q&A process where they can get questions from maybe their audience. And okay, it filters questions to a particular audience, but I mean that would probably be really helpful, because then I can cover one subset of societies and what are most of their fears, most of their issues that they would need redressed, and hopefully I would be able to then go through and have maybe an intelligent answer for each of the points that they would raise, and that might then give them hope to say, okay, maybe there's something to this, maybe I need to do more, maybe this needs to be continued on, maybe this is actually worth sharing or passing on to someone else, because you know, and even if I don't really believe in it, maybe I'll just use them as a filter for me to go, look, that's bad, and then go, yeah, it is, isn't it, you know, let's go have a drink, and just push it forevermore gone. But we don't want it to be forevermore gone, we want it to be forevermore held. And the only way it'll be forevermore held is if we entertain some of the concepts that are involved in it. And so whether that means I've got to be entertaining, that only works for a subset. CEOs don't want to see anyone who's canvassing me from a human resources point of view of going, oh, do you think he could do this vision? Not based on these videos, I agree. But if they were to have a chat with me, I think they would find that I can hold a constant dialogue in a meaningful way that would cover important points. And in terms of being a front of house person, you know, I could do that role. In fact, if anyone's got a script to read, Force is very much, I find, left hemisphere or right hemisphere. You know, you sort of go down one path once you start reading a script, and you lose the ability to be interactive and dynamic. And you know, I feel like I'm a broken record. I did say it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I've been doing this for 2 hours. This isn't my first video of the day. That if pushing past our fears, okay, so let's look at the statement. Nobody can see past their own personal fear wall. What this then creates is there's two, dualistic mind. There's 2 groups. There's more than 2 groups. It's an infinite universe. There's lots of groups. There's 2 likely groups of people I think that will come against this information. There'll be people that'll be going, qualify this, qualify this, qualify this. You know, entertain me. Is this possible? And there'll be people in the inverse going, it's not possible. You know, qualify this, qualify this, qualify this. The statements are the same. The tone of voice might be different, but the statements are the same, essentially. Maybe word choice comes about with your mind state. I don't know. You know, I'm highly attuned to that. Sadly, I've fielded 50,000 phone calls. I've worked in call centres. I'm highly acuitous to the tone of voice of the person I'm speaking with. You've only got to talk to my child. I don't put up. A tone of voice is very leading to me, and it doesn't work. I mean, I feel so sorry. I'm currently having arguments with my telco about services that haven't been working for months, and I don't get my messages, and half my phone calls don't work, and